Alright everyone, it's time for today's first video. I'm going to roll up several subtopics into a general sort of Ukraine update. It deals with energy and Russia's threats of Nord Stream 1. Of course, TikTok banning new uploads in Russia, as well as Biden and his perpetual whining about how the bad economy is Russia's fault or the fault of Russia's sanctions, asking everyone to ignore an entire year of economic data prior to the invasion. This is going to be continuous. Jen Psaki the other day coming out and lying flat out about economics. They're going to blame, this is a prediction, they will blame the new inflation numbers on Russia. Again, despite the fact that the month that it will be data for wasn't the month of the invasion. The March, you're thinking of March, it was the tail ass end of February. All the prior data from the month had nothing to do with Russia doing anything. It had already drawn up troops on the border some months before anyway, so that wasn't impacting things. So we've got lies from Biden, Russia's strong-arming things. You've got economic havoc. You've got big tech havoc, and I'm sure that there's a reason why big tech, by the way, there was never any real push by Congress to make them choose between being platforms and publishers, because then they couldn't fuck around with data and hide things from people like they're currently doing, like RT and Sputnik being down for a lot of users on YouTube. Well, it shouldn't be happening. The fact that there's disinformation there is meaningless. Doesn't fucking matter. It's far worse and more draconian when your own government is pressuring companies within your country to censor things. The irony is, of course, Putin's doing the same fucking shit, and there's no realization by much of the population that significance exists, that it's effectively the same basic style of move. It's just instead of I throw you into a gulag, it's, hey, maybe I regulate you, and then I throw you into a gulag for tax evasion later. It's basically the same thing, only with a slightly longer extra step. Anyway, before I go into this, especially the gas threats, because being here in Europe, for me personally, that would be fairly significant. I'll try to explain how. Keep in mind down below, if you're watching this video on YouTube, speak of the devil, there will be a pinned comment with links to other video hosting sites that I use. Keep in mind that I make exclusive content every day on those platforms that doesn't make it onto YouTube, usually for algorithmic purposes, in some cases because material is verboten. My opinion would be censored. Today it'll only be one exclusive because I also have another literary update. I'm flying through now officially the last 10 works, the last 10 edited works to get to number 400. After that, I've got at least a shit ton of other work that I want to do before I edit anything else. I may never return to the mainline editing jobs. I'm not sure. Amazon seems to be working now. I've figured out its new archaic copyright system. So that's fine. I'm not worried about losing the account. It's just a fucking hassle. So is it worth the time? Is it worth the effort? We'll see. It depends on how well the titles sell, I suppose. Anyway, number one story with regards to Ukraine right now is that Russia is threatening, in response to Europe's actions mainly, and the US to an extent, threatening to shut off Nord Stream 1. What this would do is that you, in a time where you've already got significant inflation, in some European nations it's worse than in the US. Just to be clear, it's not just Brandon's fault. We can't even blame him fully for the situation, although lockdowns affecting US ports doesn't really help the situation, and that was blue state lockdowners mainly at the time. Gavin Newsom. Anyway, or Cuomo, for that matter. People forget that. What would happen is you've already got much higher prices. The prices are soaring out of sight. The euro is devalued, although, you compare it to the dollar, it doesn't seem so as much, and I love it when people do the apples to oranges thing with statistics, especially involving anything that's economic. It's fucking horse shit, and these people, they know what they're doing, usually. So people are effectively losing money, and a lot of this was, again, because of the lockdowns, the European countries poured vast sums, trillions and trillions of euros into their economies of fake money, effectively. Just pumping the economies to keep things afloat while people couldn't go to work because makoof. That caused inflation. You still have, now whether it's warmer lockdowns over, so you got much higher demand, you still do have a throttling of supply. How are you supposed to increase the supply without fuel? That's the number one is pragmatically, you need a certain amount of actual energy input in order to do the things that you do, to keep the factory open, to keep the farmer having enough gas for his tractor, enough fuel for his tractor to be able to plant the fucking crops. It's early spring here. Things are already beginning to get tilled up in the hinterlands of the Netherlands, which I believe, again, is one of two countries that are self-sufficient in food in all of Europe, the other being France. I think all of the others are net importers. Although they have a lot of niche crops and stuff, they take a lot of their food and they'd rather buy third world grain, and then they use their own grain to make beer, basically. It's sort of how the globalistic economy works. It's not necessarily the most pretty thing in the world. I'm going to go to the store today, of course, like usual, buy groceries. And I promise that I will take a piece of paper and a pen if I can remember. I tend to be a little bit forgetful in the mornings, even after all the fucking good Dutch caffeine that I drink. And I'll take a list, and I'm going to write down some prices, and in 2 weeks, especially if Russia does this, I'll return and I'll see how the prices have adjusted. I dare say most of them will have adjusted sharply upward if this happens. I expect them to rise somewhat even if it doesn't. The problem is, under normal circumstances, let's say that the U.S. had competent leadership. I know this is halfway across the world, but it matters. The U.S. over the last decade, especially under Trump due to hyper-deregulation and the drill baby drill mentality and the rediscovery of new oil in some areas they thought were played out, especially in Texas. In all honesty, there were some exploratory finds that were significant. We drilled out a bunch of oil, bought out a bunch of gas. The United States became number one in both and became a net exporter. The U.S., if it had kept up that mentality for the last year, instead of locking everything down and fucking itself in the ass, would at least partially be able to offset the fuel loss from Nord Stream. Now, U.S. fuel will have to go across an ocean. It will cost more. But the supply is stable, which means you don't have the ups and downs of dealing with Russia. You don't have to pay Russia, which the European countries other than Germany proclaim is a big thing. Well, we need to stop Russia. Yet Germany won't shut off the fuel supply. That's because there's nobody to give it the fuel that it needs other than Russia. It can't get it anywhere else. It could have gotten it from the United States. Hell, the United States could sweeten the deal, hold the price down and say, look, you're our allies. We'll help you for a while just to fuck with the Ruskies. We could have done that. But Biden decided to shut down Keystone, shut down new drilling permits, sit on the ones that are in process of application, illegally, I will add, hyper-regulating the energy sector, and now says, well, we've got ours. Basically Biden is saying, fuck Europe, by the way. Oh, Russia might shut off your fuel supply? You had to shut off Nord Stream 2. Now they're threatening to shut off Nord Stream 1 as well. They're going to starve all of Europe. Western Europe's manufacturing will be in the shitter, and prices will soar out of sight. By the way, fucking people like me in the ass. I do have to eat food and shit. Oh, you're going to get fucked? That's okay. We'll buy Iranian oil. It's time to restart the Iran deal. Did you see that from the Biden administration the other day? They're so averse to the idea of creating American jobs, they'd rather buy oil from the Iranians. These people are not playing with a full deck economically. Of course, the whole goal is to fuck fuel prices and to screw the American worker and the Europeans, to get them to live in the pod, to get them to eat the bugs. That's the whole fucking point. That's the whole fucking point. They're looking at lemons, which is Russia's getting imperialistic again. They made lemonade. Hey, well, we can do Great Reset. We're halfway there thanks to COVID lockdowns. So, hey, this will replace the public's fear of COVID because they're no longer afraid. They no longer tolerate lockdownerism. What'll we do? Oh, good, a recession? That'll be great. And we'll be able to spend lots of funny money giving people welfare breadcrumbs, and really most of that money will go into state functions, bureaucrats' pockets, and corporations. We'll steal from the population just like we did with the Great Recession. That's exactly what they're setting up to do. Then, Biden is also very happy. He's jovial that the Ukrainians are dying right now, because now he gets to blame his bad economy on Russia invading Ukraine. When the new inflation numbers come out in the couple following days, Biden's immediate reaction will be, yes, well, there's going to be a lot of pain that we have to deal with. That's the cost of defending democracy. As though it technically has anything to do with the United States at all, since Ukraine's not a NATO member. Yeah, but the Polish, just give them the fucking planes and let them deal with it, and then this will be over. You know why they don't want to give them the planes? Because the Ukrainians might win, and then they won't be able to use this to push Great Reset things anymore. Biden has already instructed Psaki, apparently, the other day is any indicator, to blame economic woes on Russia. The problem is you have to ignore an entire year of economic data in order to think that's meaningful. Joe Biden already caused massive inflation. He already caused low labor force participation, offsetting a significant chunk of that admittedly low top-end unemployment number. Although the numbers have been screwy for the last couple of decades, just so we're aware of how that's calculated. The fact that wages are depreciating because they're not keeping up with inflation. You've got chronic shortages. You have effectively stagflation and edge of recession conditions plus sky-high oil prices that keep moving up. Did you see the price of wheat and how much that's rising? You do realize that people eat a lot of bread, correct? Oh, but it won't cause a depression. It could never happen now. No, we're so much wiser than people in the 30s. I don't think so. I think the average person's fucking dumber, actually. It's the problem. Then, TikTok has banned Russian uploading. And TikTok is just another big tech firm. I love it when some of the based Eastern Bloc people are like, well, TikTok's different from YouTube or something. No, it's not. It's like when I was debating Fuentes, and he said that he had been banned from TikTok and then tried to state, well, it's no longer a Chinese company. Microsoft bought it. That's why I got banned. Nope, still Chinese. That deal never went through. China is just as much into wokeness, CRT, etc., so they're not going to host somebody like Nick Fuentes. Sure as hell wouldn't host somebody like me. I'd be banned on day one. While it's great that TikTok is losing money by not having uploading in Russia over Russia's fake news law, which is fucking goddamn hilarious. Because I guess like CNN and some of those groups, they probably have TikTok, so that's probably why. While that's funny, on principle, I can't support any form of censorship. It's like when you're saying, well, RT is spreading pro-war disinfo. It makes sense to ban them. No, it doesn't. Let them spread disinfo. Just make sure that, all you have to do is make sure that comment sections can't be closed by mainstream media. That's all you have to do. And then if they say something that's false, people like me will show up and fact check it. I just wish they'd do the same thing to CNN that they're doing to RT. I just wish that YouTube and TikTok were treated evenly on both sides of the block, that everyone had access and there was no censorship. Then good ideas would tend to prevail. But that's the problem. Good ideals were prevailing during the 2000s and most of the 2010s. That's why they're cracking down. They're afraid of those good ideas. They're terrified of populism. And people, instead of having globalism at the top-down level, having global cooperation at the civically minded bottom-up level so that you can't use it to abuse various people. Instead of TPP, you'd have people speaking kindly to one another and understanding one another's cultures, and they wouldn't be compelled to feel sorry about criticizing one another's cultures. That's what this is about. It's just about control. So yeah, if Russia does shut off Nord Stream 1, yeah, I mean, all hell will break loose economically here in Europe. It'll steeply impact things. The prices are already rising significantly. I think not quite as much in the U.S. on some goods because, you know, you've got the European free market system, at least in the interior sense. You've got their trade system. It generally works. But it will be worse than in the United States by far if this happens. Impacting yours truly, since I'm in fucking Netherlands right now. So thank you, Joe Biden, for fucking the U.S. fuel system. Thanks, Putin, for, I don't know, I'm honestly thinking he might have gone off of his rocker because he seems to be having trouble. Thank you, European governments, for getting involved without a backup plan. It makes a whole lot of fucking sense. Thanks. That's about all. Peace out.